Today I'm going to show you how to restring a guitar. Now, I wasn't planning to show you how to do that until a while later, but last week one of the strings on my guitar snapped, which is one of the two common reasons why people would restring a guitar. So you can see here, I've lost this middle string just while I was playing it. It snapped, which normally happens if your strings are quite old. Eventually that will happen, particularly if you're playing quite hard on them, which I've mentioned before. The other reason that you might restring your guitar is that just the strings get old and they lose the quality of their sound decreases, and the strings don't slide as easily on your fingers, don't slide across the strings as easily. So sometimes everyone varies. Obviously the more you play your guitar, the more wear and tear they'll get, but I think when I was playing the most, when I was learning earlier on and I was a part of the band, I was probably restringing my guitar about 3 times a year. But these days I hardly do because I don't play as much. Now, a lot of places, a lot of people rather, will just take their guitar to a music shop and get them to restring it, which is fine. I've never done that, so I don't know how much it costs. I assume it's not that much because it doesn't take that much time. But it's kind of a handy skill to learn on your own, and it will also save you for all those times where maybe you're out somewhere, at a conference or a camp or something like that, and you need to play your guitar, and you can't just go, you don't have the time to take it in. It might take a few days, and not to mention the time to actually get to the shop, drop it off, all that kind of thing. So, usually I would restring all 6 strings of my guitar, but I'm only going to do some of the strings today. I think you'll get the general idea, and it's kind of a repetitive process once you get the hang of it. So what are the things you're going to need? You'll need, firstly, one of these, which is, well actually you won't need one of these, but it'll help, it'll make it a lot quicker, as I'll show you in a second. So this is for unwinding the strings of the guitar. It'll help to have something like a screwdriver, which I'm going to use to take out these pins that will hold in the strings on one end. And then, of course, you need some new strings, okay? So, it helps to do, rather than starting on one string and then replacing it, and then doing the next string and replacing that, I find it's a better idea to take off all the strings that you're going to replace, do that all first, and then put them all on. So doing each sort of task separately rather than doing each string separately. Okay. So the first thing you need to do is to have a nice clean workspace so you don't lose any bits and pieces. Some of these are quite small. As you can see, this string here, which is the G, it snapped. So I've already removed part of it. It had half of it sort of hanging off this end and half flying around here, so I sort of took off that, but I still have this pin in here holding one of the pieces inside. Now, when you remove this, you want to be careful because a little bit of the string is hanging off at the end, and you don't want to lose it inside your guitar. It's easy to take, well, it's semi-easy to take it out. You can shake it and turn it upside down and all that, but it's easier if you just keep track of it carefully in the first place. So take your screwdriver, for instance. I don't know what else you could use, to be honest. So long as it's small enough and hard enough that you can actually lever in and take this out. All you want to do is carefully prise it out, and then what you'll have is this little piece here. So this little pin, don't lose it. I mean, it's easy to get a replacement, but it's you've got to go into a shop to get it. So keep that somewhere safe. Take out the little piece that's left over. Okay, so now that's ready to go. I could put a new string in there and start to attach it on the other end. But like I mentioned, I'm going to do all the strings at once. So I'm going to do all of the top strings. So all of these are the top 3 strings. So that's going to be half of them. Okay, so I'm going to take out those as well. Now, because at the moment, even though it's not very in tune at the moment, that's a bit flat. There's still a lot of tension in that string. So if I undo it from here, it's going to sort of jump out at me. So instead of doing that first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to unwind from this end. Now you can see if I do this just with my fingers, you can hear it changing quite a lot. But when you actually look at how much it's unwound, it's hardly unwound at all, because the idea is that you want to make small changes up here rather than big changes. So the gears up here are designed so that even if you move it quite a bit, very little distance is going around here. Okay, so the string is still held in place quite a lot. So that's what this is for. Now you can see I'm winding it, from my perspective, I'm winding it counterclockwise to take it away, to unwind it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and the machine head fits into this little sort of groove hole in there, okay, like so. And now, instead of winding it with my fingers, I can just go around like this, which is immensely faster. It's a lot faster. This will save time in taking the string off and also in putting the next string back on. Okay, now I can see that's starting to unwind, and you can tell as well. Now, as I play that, it's not making any sound anymore because there's not enough tension. Okay, so now that that's sort of unwound, I can unwind it. So there's one end there, and it's all curly because it's been curled around there for that whole time. And now it's a better idea to take off this pin. So I'll do that. I'll prise it out again. There we go. Now again, don't lose them. It's so easy to lose them, and it's a big hassle. So now you can see. I might as well show you now. If you can make it out, this end of the string, it's got a little sort of metal piece to stop it from coming out, basically to hold it in place. So that's the second string I've taken out, and let's do this last one. Get my tool here. That always sounds funny. Okay, there we go. Get rid of a bit more tension. Alright, that should do. Okay, so unwind it up the top here first, if you've got enough slack, which maybe I don't quite. Yeah, let's do a little more. Okay, that's a little better. There we go. Okay. Unwind it, so now that's free. I can do it down this end. Okay, so now that I've gotten rid of those three strings, if you have a look, now you can see, well, at least half of the fretboard is clear. Now, this is one of the reasons why you want to do all of the strings at once rather than do each string individually. Because if I were replacing all of my strings, once I'm finished, you've got access to the entire fretboard, which is the perfect time to clean it up, perhaps add some oils if you want to really maintain your guitar. Because the fretboard is otherwise basically impossible to clean effectively because there are always strings on top of it. So you can clear out the dust. Oil will help you get rid of sweat and that kind of thing, which is just deposited on the guitar after playing it for a long time. And once that's all nice and fresh, you can also clean underneath here, this spot at the bottom that gathers dust a lot, particularly if you don't keep your guitar in a case, if you keep it out because you play it frequently. And after that, you're ready to put all the new strings on, okay? Now, generally, the place that I'll start is at the deepest, the lowest strings, okay? So lowest in pitch, not lowest in position, because obviously they look higher, okay? So usually that would be this E, okay? But this time, because the lowest string that I have that I'm going to replace is the G, so that's where I'm going to start. So get your strings out, and so I think I mentioned before, you can buy these individually, but they'll come in packs of 6 as well. Take it out. Don't lose this packet. You don't need it, but it might be handy later on because these strings, right? So they come in individual packets inside the packet of 6. And before you look at them, the way that you can tell them apart is there should be a number of some kind somewhere describing which string this is. That has to do with the weight of the string. So the heavier strings are these deeper, lower strings there. So this is a 50. This is a 40. Keep you going here. I got a 28, a 20, a 14, and it looks like it's a 10. Okay. Now these numbers will vary. Now you can see all 6 of those numbers on the front of your packet, and that's why it's sometimes useful to hold on to this because the order is here. So even if you mix these up, you'll know which one is which because you can have a look at the order that's there. Now these are they're reasonably light strings, so some strings will vary from the smallest one not being 10 but say maybe 14 or 15, and the heaviest being 60 or 62, and the numbers in the middle will change to reflect that. Okay, so with a I think I mentioned before with heavier strings, they're harder to hold down, but some people will say you'll get more volume out of them, and some people prefer the tone of those heavier strings more. Okay, now I'm only replacing the top 3 strings, so I'm going to take those 3 out. Those are the ones I'm going to need. Get rid of the others. So I'm going to start at the 20 and then put on the 14, and last I'm going to put on the 10. That's the top E string. Okay. So let's start with the 20. Just take it out. It's all wound up, so you want to unwind it so that it's all straight. Okay. Now we're basically just going to reverse the process that we did before. So you remember before we unwound here and then we took out this pin here because the pin was the last thing holding it in place. So to reverse that, I'm going to take this end of the string. You know it's the right one because it's got a little metal sort of ring on the end which will stay in place. And grab your pin, and you want to, you'll see there's a little groove. So this thing is not symmetrical. It doesn't have rotational symmetry. So there's a little groove in there where the string can fit in. So what you want to do is face that towards the head of the guitar. Oh, I should have mentioned before as well. Another place that's helpful to clean is up here in between the strings, because again, very hard to clean, and that gets tons of dust on it as well. It's pretty disgusting on mine actually right now. Anyway, so you want to insert this end of the string and use the pin to hold it in. Okay, so let's see if I can hold this up a little bit so you can see it a little clearer. So I would usually do this while it's sitting down, so gravity can help me, but just so you get a bit of a better view, I'm going to put that string in, and you want to push that pin in nice and firmly. If you don't push it in firmly enough, it'll come back out when you're restringing, when you're actually putting tension back into the string, because it's pulling away, so it's going to want to come out. So make sure you pushed it in really hard. Okay. So then you want to carefully guide your string up the free end of the string, and you'll come up to the bridge of the guitar. Now the bridge will have 6 little grooves in it where the 6 strings are meant to sit. Okay, so you can see that's where it's got a nice little spot where it's not going to wiggle around side to side, which you don't want your strings to do while you're playing. And note carefully the positions of where the strings go. So you can see, this is not an electric guitar. Some electric guitars have all of the machine heads along one side of the head, but most guitars have it on both sides. So you can see this E, A, D, they fit onto these 1, 2, 3 frets respectively. Okay, not frets, these machine heads. Okay, so note the order, don't get the order mixed up, right? So the middle 2 strings go to the highest machine heads that are up here at the top of the guitar. Okay, so they go from the inside, the inside of the head of the guitar to the outside. So I'm going to start here. And now carefully and slowly, I'm going to wind this around. Okay, now don't worry if you can't get it really, really tight. When you look at your existing strings, they're wound super tight. Okay, so you're like, how do I do that by hand when you actually try to do it? It'll be almost impossible, because the way you're going to get that tension is not by winding it by hand, but by actually turning the machine head. That's what it's for. Okay, right, now wind it around as many times as you can. Basically, the time you want to stop is that when you've got this free end, it's going to feed into a hole, a tiny little hole at the top of this machine head. When you have a look, you'll see it's cylindrical, this shape, and you can wind around it, but if you wind around it too many times, you'll cover the hole where the end of the string is meant to go in. Okay, so I've winded around 4 or 5 times here, so now I'm going to take the free end, and I'm going to feed it into this hole. Okay, so it's a bit fiddly. There we go. Okay, and you can see I've wound it enough times that now it sits there and it stays. Okay, but it's nowhere near tense enough to, it's nowhere near highly strong enough to actually play a note. That's nothing's really happening. Yeah, so I need to add more tension in there. And the way I'm going to do that is by winding these strings. Okay, now just like we mentioned before, if I do this by hand, which is how I unwound it, this is going to take me forever. Okay, so instead, what I want to do is I want to make sure that I've got my my tool here, okay? And if you look, you can sort of see it's very, very slowly coming around. I'm watching this part of the string, the free end, okay? It's rotating very slowly. But if I use this tool, then it's going to go much faster, okay? Now, don't overwind. It's hard to overwind because you have to go very far. But if you do, you'll snap your string all over again, okay? Because they're only able to take so much tension before they snap. So in order to make sure that you're not overdoing it, as you wind, try to play your string, okay? Now, as it adds more tension, you'll start to hear it able to play a note. So you can hear that. Can you hear that? I'm not playing it very hard, intentionally, because it doesn't have that much tension in it. But you can see it's a very deep sound. It doesn't seem to match the sound of this string. And about that point, that's still far too deep for us. We actually need it to be much higher. But at this point, I feel like that's enough. I don't need to use the tool anymore, and I'm going to do it by hand now, okay? Now, what you want to listen for, if you have your tuner there, is for it to be, well, since I've already got an existing string, that's where I actually want it to be. That's a G, okay? So you can see that's what it's supposed to be. This is what it is right now. So I'm way off, okay? So if you're starting from scratch, you want to be very careful, because you'll need the tuner there, because you probably won't be able to tell what an E sounds like on its own without any reference point. But at the moment, that is my reference point, even if that's a bit off, okay? So I mentioned before, this guitar has a tuner in it. So I'm going to tune up, and I'm expecting it to get to a G, right? So I've still got a fair way to go. As you get further up, as your string gets higher up in pitch, you'll notice it's harder and harder to turn. And the reason why is because there's more tension in the string, so it's harder to pull. It's a bit like a tug of war, I suppose. The string's trying to pull away, and it's trying to keep its tension, and you're trying to add more tension to it. So keep going until you're getting closer to the note. Okay, now that's in the ballpark. That's where I need to get to. Whereas this sounds more like... So it looks like, you can use the string below to compare. It looks like I'm 1, 2 semitones off, okay? Now, if you're listening really carefully, you've got good pitch, and my mic is good enough to pick it up, you might have noticed just in the 10 seconds when I've been playing that note, it's gotten deeper, it's gotten lower, it's lost some of its pitch. And the reason why is because this is a new string, right? So it's actually stretching. The string is stretching, which means it loses its tension, okay? So you're going to have to retune quite a bit when you first put on strings, okay? Okay, now I'm getting pretty close. And my tuner says I'm right about there now, okay? And I actually need to retune the rest of the strings as well, because all of the tension relates to each other, and this guitar hasn't been kept in that much tune. So let me just tune this up. That's too high. There we go. Okay, so it's not too bad, okay? Now, I'm not going to fuss over getting it super accurate, because as I add more strings, and as the next few minutes pass, this G will go back out of tune, okay? So don't worry about getting it perfectly. In fact, it's already a bit flat, but I'll fix that up later, okay? So I've got 4 strings now, so I'm going to repeat that process for the last 2 strings. So do it a bit quicker this time, since you saw how I did it before. So unwind it, get your pin, pop it into place, push it in nice and firmly. Okay, position it at the top through the bridge. Careful with these, they're actually quite sharp, so watch out you don't hurt yourself. So I'll wind it around up the top now. As many times as you can, and then pop it in. There we go. Okay, so that's holding in place. Now I'll get my tool out to wind it. You can also see, without playing it, the reason why I don't need to play it to know that it's not in tension yet is because the string is way above the neck of the guitar, the fretboard. So that's how I know. I can see it from looking down. Okay. So that's where I got to get to. I still got a fair way to go. And this has got to get to a B, so I've got a fair way to go still. Okay, tuner says that's about right. And the G has gone way down now, so I'm going to fix that up. Too far. Okay, so I'm almost there. Last string. So you can see once you get the basic process down, it's not that complicated. You just have to repeat it. And it doesn't take long, which is why, you know, if you don't mind it being not that professional a job, it's far more efficient than taking it into a shop and paying them to do it, when it's not that hard a skill to learn for just an amateur, really. Okay, so last string in place. Pull it out. Now, I don't know if you just noticed then, but I was tuning it up and then suddenly it tuned back down. Now, why is that? It's because the little kinks that happened when I was wrapping the string up the top will sort of pop out as I'm winding. So you'll lose some of the tension. So don't freak out. It can be a bit surprising the first time it happens, but it's not that big a deal. Just patiently keep winding. Okay. This is where I need to get to. Fair way to go. Almost there. Okay, so I'm basically done. So now I can give it a go. Sounds pretty good. So that's how to restring a guitar. Obviously, if I was doing all of the strings, I would just repeat the process another 3 times, and then you're done. Now, if you have a pair of pliers on you, you can cut off these ends because they're a bit awkward flying around. Some people tie funny loops out of them, you know, whatever you like, but it probably is a good idea to make sure they're not just, gonna poke someone in the eye if you're not careful. So, once you're done, excuse me, don't forget that just like we've been noticing over the last few minutes, because these strings are new, they will go out of tune pretty quickly. And so for the next day or so, depending on the quality of your strings, we're going to expect them to lose pitch very, very quickly. So I'm going to go back to my tuner quite frequently, and that's already a bit flat, until you get to a happy spot and you don't need to, continually retune every few minutes. And that's basically it. That's how to restring a guitar.